All Linux users have a main reason for why they have left Windows or macOS, and I will be covering privacy in this section, which is, to me, the most important reason of why I left Windows. Linux doesn't sell your personal information, unlike Windows and macOS. I do not know too much about macOS, I just know that it does sell your personal data. I just haven't personally experienced it for years on end. This list of things that I have found mostly egregious of what Windows collects is advertising ID for targeted advertisements, which means that they can get these advertisements and they can track you where you go and continue targeting you with advertisements. Send Microsoft data about how you write so they can use that information to track you on where you go on the internet. Like, for example, let's say you go to their Microsoft Forms website and you write something. They can compare it back to your data about how you write, and they can make a good estimate that that's you. Location data. Edge sending Cortana and typing prediction data. Whenever you start typing something in Edge, it'll automatically try to predict it, and if you have Cortana on, it will try to use Cortana with it, which sends data back to Microsoft of everything you do in Edge. This one is depending, but Smart Screen, because Smart Screen, it allows you to run programs and it'll check over it real quick to make sure it's not malware, but it also does that for every website you go to. And the problem is that it checks with Microsoft every time you do this, which means that they get to see every website you go to and every program that you open. Speech, inking, and typing data allows Microsoft to know everything about you, just like the send Microsoft info about how you write section above. It's pretty much the same thing. And this is the craziest section, diagnostics and feedback, which you are unable to turn off. There is only basic and full in the settings. I have made a short list of just what's in the basic, so there's quite a bit more in the full, but most people would probably want to use the basic, which includes data to help keep Microsoft Windows safe and secured, device connectivity, processor type, number and types of cameras, IP address, IMEI carrier, region and language settings, data about connected devices, data about installed software, and data that tells Microsoft when a piece of software crashes. Not only is what you have on your computer completely known by Microsoft, but whatever you plug in is also known by Microsoft, which is crazy. If you have a friend that has Windows 10 and you give them a flash drive with something on it, you can't even be safe with that. Microsoft still gets to see that. Microphone, which uses Cortana for its Microsoft servers, so that way you can ask it to go to a website or data about things. Call history, and then partially between this section and the next section, updates, because updates, they have this option in there to where it'll download updates from other people, which is a huge privacy problem. Like, why would you want that on? Anyways, we are going on to the next section now. Another common theme with us Linux users is updates. Linux doesn't force updates on you, and you can choose to install them whenever you want. Just like I covered in the last section, downloading updates from other people is a horrendous idea. And it's on by default. That's the crazy thing. It's not like something that you go into the settings and turn on. It's an opt-out, not an opt-in. And that's ridiculous. Updates are forced onto you. Unlike Linux, Windows 10 will just continually keep on connecting to Microsoft servers to get updates, which updates are not a bad thing, but whenever it's connecting to their servers, it's also a privacy problem because they get to see your IP address again, not just the diagnostic settings, but they get to see your IP address again. They get to see the updates you're downloading. So that is also a privacy problem, but it's in this section because it's mainly about updates. Windows 7 Windows 8 had a quotations bug that made Windows 10 install onto your computer automatically. People would go to bed and the next day they'd wake up and Windows 10 would be on their computer. And Microsoft just said it was a bug, but I personally don't believe that's just a bug. It's a pretty smart idea on Microsoft's end, because if they could just get people to have Windows 10 installed, they'll see it and they'll be like, oh, it's not that bad. and then they won't switch back to their Windows 7 or Windows 8 that they were previously on. Forced restarts. Unfortunately, it's not just the update manager on Windows that forces restarts, it's also third-party programs, such as Origin. Whether you like it or not, on Windows, eventually you are going to have to deal with a forced restart, and it is really annoying. Like, for example, you got done installing updates, and you're like, great, and it restarts, and then it's in the login screen, and it needs to update even more. Like, it continues spinning the little loading bar and says installing updates even when you're on the login screen. And that's the next point. These updates just take forever. Whereas on Linux, you just click one button and then you click update. Or you go on the terminal and you type in sudo apt-get upgrade. That's all you have to do. And then that's it. You restart whenever you want, and it won't even need to do that stuff on the login screen. It's done. It's updated. It's so much easier on Linux. This video has a lot of similar themes to other Linux videos, and that's because we all collectively agree on these ideas. And in this section, I'll be talking about how Linux is entirely open source, which means you are able to look into it and see how everything works together. And if there is any tracker installed on your distro, you'll be able to see it and kill it. Unlike Windows 10 privacy settings, which you cannot look into the source code and see that it's there. Because Linux is entirely open source, it allows you to create your own distribution exactly how you want it. You can mess around with the themes, the default installed applications, the privacy, the way programs interact with each other, the default graphics server, everything that you want to do, you can completely customize it in your own distro. Similar to creating your own distro, it allows you to modify an existing one, such as Ubuntu, exactly how you like it. That's what the Linux Mint project does. It's just completely based on Ubuntu, but they've modified it how they like it. And that's why I prefer Linux Mint, because it's a better version of Ubuntu. Because it's open source, it allows people from all over the world to work together on a piece of software to make it perfect. Unlike closed source, which is just one program, or a couple companies working together on one program. Open source allows all kinds of people all over the world, companies, non-companies, anybody is allowed to work on this open source project and make it better, so you can make the piece of software perfect. Because it's open source, Linux is 100% free with no license key, which is what we're going to be talking about in the next section. Unlike the other sections in this video, I really do believe that Microsoft has a good reason to charge for their product because they put a lot of time and work into it. In their company, they have to make profit some way, and they choose to charge money for their products. Nonetheless, it's still annoying. Unlike Windows and macOS, Linux is 100% free and it requires no license key. People claim that you don't need to buy macOS, but the products that Apple sell are crazy expensive. And I believe that some of that expense, outside of the fact that it has a little Apple logo on it, is that it comes with a macOS. A license key, again, back to privacy, can be used to track you. A license key on a computer is stuck with that, and so that's a great way for Microsoft to be able to track you. Normal Windows 10 Home Edition costs $100, and the Pro Edition costs $200. That money that you spent right there just for the Home Edition, not even the Pro Edition, just the Home Edition, could have been used on your PC for like another part or a better part, like a better CPU. But instead, you're just wasting it on Windows. License keys, if at all possible, to move between computers is a pain. Since Windows 10 license keys store themselves in the BIOS, it's a pain to move them in between computers, if you can at all. I've had all kinds of troubles in the past trying to get Windows 8 in between my computers, and it's so annoying because I don't want to have to buy it over and over for each computer I get. I should just be allowed to move it between computers, but that would make too much sense. Whereas on Linux, you don't even have that problem because you can just install whatever version of you want on whatever computer you want. Windows has had security issues from the get-go, but Linux was designed with security in mind because it's based on Unix, and Unix was designed for servers, which had to have security. Every time you install something or make a system change, such as installing a graphics driver on Linux, you have to have admin privileges, and in most distros you have to put root before the command in a terminal for it to be executed as admin. And admin requires putting in an admin password every time you do it, so that stops malware from going in and destroying all your files. Linux doesn't have as much malware out there because hackers target popular systems such as Windows. Because of Linux's rate of development, whenever a hole in the security of the kernel is detected, it is patched extremely quickly, whereas on Windows it takes quite a while for Microsoft developers to push it out. For people that run servers, this is extremely important, which we will be talking about on the next section. As probably a lot of you know, Linux is dominating in the server world, and there's a reason for that. In the Windows Standard License Key, it states, use of the software as server software for commercial hosting, make the software available for simultaneous use by multiple users over a network, install the software on a server and allows users to access it remotely, or install the software on a device for use by remote users is prohibited. Which means you'd have to pay a crazy amount of money just for a server edition of the OS, whereas you could just use Linux, which is completely free to run your servers on, and it's lightweight, so it's perfect. Don't get me wrong from this section. Out of Windows and macOS, I would always take Windows because macOS is just terrible. And Windows is terrible too, but it's better. But in this section, Windows is the problem, as macOS also has a powerful terminal like Linux. Linux has an extremely powerful terminal that can do all sorts of things. It can download updates with the command sudo apt-get upgrade, which will download the updates and you can see the updates as they're downloading them and then restart later whenever you want. You can install software through repositories, which I personally find a lot more convenient than Windows, where you have to go hunt down the executable. And on Linux, most distros have a GUI-based repository system, which allows you to install your software without even going through the terminal, which for some people is even easier. The Linux terminal has built-in text editors such as Vim or VI. If you just type in the name of any installed program on your computer in the terminal, it'll open it and it'll allow you to log everything that program is doing through the terminal. The terminal has a lot of customizations, like changing the background and transparency of it, which we'll be talking about in the next section. Windows and macOS have layouts that stay the same the whole life of the computer, whereas on Linux you can make it exactly how you want. Linux has different desktop environments, which allows you to have multiple layouts. Some of those include Cinnamon, Unity, GNOME, XFCE, KDE, and the list goes on. All desktop environments also have a ton of themes you can install on them to make them exactly how you want. If you are experienced enough, you can even make your own desktop environment and you can make it perfect to how you want it. You can easily change the color of your cursor, easily change fonts, easily change window buttons and window border text placement, the size of the panel, modify what's on that panel, and there's even more that would take forever to list. Alright, well this is the end of the video. Those were a few reasons why I prefer Linux and I don't like Windows or macOS. If I were to put a whole list of why I don't like Windows or macOS, the video would go on for ages, but I put the main reasons why, and I believe most people would agree those are their main reasons too. If you'd like to watch more content like Linux and me talking about professionally talking about why I prefer Linux or different subjects like desktop environments or whatever topic you want me to talk about, just comment down below on what you want to see. And if you enjoyed the video, I'd very much appreciate it if you left a like down below. Even if you did not like, a dislike would let me know that you did not like the video, and that helps. All feedback helps. So if you did not like the video, a dislike would also help. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.